Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Sydney Sloan, who's the former CMO of Salesloft. Thanks for joining us, Sydney.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sydney, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer the question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so the first one, at what age do you want to retire?
50, which is before now.
How do you relax?
I'm taking a year off, so that's kind of I'm getting a taste of semi-retirement.
And the next question was, how do you relax? And you're literally saying by taking a year off.
Yeah, taking a year off, Pilates,
Okay.
being by the water.
A fruit you can eat at any time of the day.
Apple.
What historical event do you wish you could have witnessed?
Oh, geez. I'm going to pass on that one.
A film that can be seen several times without becoming boring.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Saw it this weekend again for like the 15th time.
Okay. What are you most likely to be arrested for?
Speeding.
Okay. A habit of yours that you hate.
Eating late at night.
Work from home or work from office?
Office. I'm an extrovert. I miss it.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
5, but I'd prefer not to.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I'm down to 1 from 4. Doing better.
Favorite Netflix show?
The Flight Attendant.
Most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Forgiveness.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
15 to 20 minutes.
And the last question is the city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
Paris.
Okay, I love how it was a tough choice. Okay.
Yeah, that is a good one. It's for all good reasons.
Fair. Okay, well, that was the good that it's a video as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so let's go on to the long questions now. As a market leader, what is the biggest problem facing leaders like yourself right now?
Just the change, right? It's the world has changed so much, and trying to adapt the strategies, new strategies to the new ways that people want to learn, engage, create community. It's hard, right? Like when you take the person to person aspects out of relationship building, which is part of marketing's job. How do you still make it personal?
And do you then believe that creative design and brand development have just fallen on the wayside as there's now a greater emphasis on supporting income generation?
I think that's a double-edged sword that many marketers fall on. And because if you don't, like, the investment in brand as early as you can actually makes demand gen cheaper in the long run. And so people, if they can draw an emotional connection to the brand, if your brand is seen as a leader, as a thought leader, as the curator of communities, people want to join that. And I think that there's such an emphasis on, and it's expensive to develop brand. And so, I think just looking back at most recently at Salesloft, we were one of the 2 leaders in the category. And our competitor did a really good job of kind of embracing the communities, the sales communities everywhere. And we did too, but not as good as they did. And they also acquired a sales media company. So that was really smart. If I had the opportunity to do that again, I totally would. And so we had to work harder at building our brand, and we used our employees, and we were one of the lucky ways. And I think that all companies can do this. But our salespeople, our frontline people, were our customers, and so being able to activate their social presence really helped build the brand of Salesloft, which was much about building relationships. So we had a lot of great brand ambassadors. If you don't have that, then hiring evangelists is a really good way to also do that, and when you're empowering your employees to be the representation of your brand.
And what's one thing you wish you had done differently now going back and looking at everything?
Well, I would have gotten on those communities faster. Probably paid more for the sponsorships that we were negotiating for. There were a couple that were just ridiculous and it didn't make sense. So I walked away, and being budget conscious versus having the long game in mind, because we lost out on a couple of those really good communities. Um, what I mean, so many things, right? Like I think that's the interesting thing about being a marketer. It's not there's so many facets to what we do, and you're constantly trading off. And of course, you want to do everything the best you possibly can, but you have to also be okay knowing that you're doing some things well. We built a great inbound engine. We were super efficient in the way that we did it. And yeah, it took us a little bit longer to get to the other things, but that's those were the choices that we made in hindsight. So I'm never one to regret any decision, because I think I try to do a very good job of taking people's inputs and using data to make the right decision. And one thing I am is decisive. I think that lack of decision is actually worse than, making the wrong decision. At least you're still moving and you can learn and adjust. So I try not to ever regret anything. It's
Hmm.
just part of
And
life.
and speaking of which, you recently did a very large rebrand for Salesloft last year. Why did you decide that was the right time to do a brand overhaul? And what are some tips for effectively measuring and implementing a new brand?
Well, I wanted to do it 2 years earlier, to be honest. Insider secret here.
Mhm.
And we went through an entire process. And for those out there that work for founders, sometimes the brand is a representation of them personally as well. And so, looking back, our founder wasn't ready to let the old brand go. And so we went to clean it up a little bit and modernize it a little bit, but it wasn't the overhaul I was hoping for. And uh and and what happened was, when we went to register the brand mark, it was already registered. So all of a sudden we had to, because we were trying to expand into new countries, and so we had to change the brand. And it took a while, because it was a year-long process that we went through, and it was radical. I mean, we changed everything but the name. Every single the color palette completely changed, our tone completely changed, the look and feel. And I think the thing about brand is, it's not just the color palettes, all the things that I just said, but it's the way that we wanted people to feel, and that didn't change either. So the authenticity of the name and the brand itself, in terms of our mission, didn't change, but we got to amp it up. And I've said this publicly, so I don't think Kyle would be upset, but the 75, I think he went to the $99 logo store and had a coupon for $70. So which is their first brand. So he definitely got his value out of the $70. The second part of your question, well, so the reason it was now is because we had grown up. We still look like a startup, and we were serving enterprise companies, and that was our brand didn't look at the quality level of the service that we were delivering. So we had to update the brand. We had to grow up, and the I think the biggest part of it, and I interviewed a lot of CMOs that had gone through brand updates before, that really the activation. So I think so many times that people work so hard at just the mechanics of updating all the pieces, and our activation program started rolling out internally, because like I said, your people are your biggest brand ambassadors. So we started teasing internally in January, and we didn't launch the brand until September. And we activated our employees, we activated our advocates, top advocates in the community, and our key influencers, our customer advisory boards. Like, we had a rolling kind of internal thunder, and then we had this really great kind of FOMO campaign that went out. And so the day of, our engagement was better than expected, and then we kept it going those next 2 quarters, so continuing to be everywhere and be bold. And so don't underinvest in the activation of the brand once you go ahead and launch it. It's not just a launch day, it's a complete, shift and change.
And in your experience, which fundamental disciplines have helped build and deliver value in the many organizations you've worked with, whether it be with brand or something else? How do you optimize these disciplines to support a seamless customer experience?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of different ways that brands can deliver value. I think first and foremost, it's making sure you fulfill the brand promise. And I was reading a post the other day about sellers who oversell. And when they oversell, the next step is that at renewal, they have to reduce the offer and they're more likely to churn versus, sellers that almost undersell, overprove the value. The customer comes and renews at a greater value and they then become more loyal. Thomas Sung did a post on it. It was awesome. And I completely believe in that. There's one discipline that I've always been a fan of. I think it was about 2005 when I first started working in it, and that's the value selling, value engineering, business value assessments, whatever that might be called, and especially in enterprise sales situations where you help the customer build out their business case. It's their business case. It's not yours. This is not an ROI calculator. It's very far from that. A lot of people think that's what it is. It's not. You go in and you discuss value and what are those value drivers, and you build your economic pitch around those value drivers, and then you continue on in the customer relationship, demonstrating how you delivered to those drivers. And that's a really sophisticated way to establish credibility not only for your company but for the buyer that made the decision to buy your software, and you're helping them build their reputation and showcase their good decision making within their own company.
And how do you think this is different for, because you said at some point you guys started serving a lot of enterprise customers. So how is this different from like enterprise customers versus someone less than an enterprise?
In the delivering of value,
Mm-hmm.
um, it continues to go back to relationship first and foremost. The value in the very small market is if you do a good job of serving them when they're small, they may go somewhere big, and so they take you with them. So we always chose to serve all customers and try to serve them at the best of our ability. And so I think it goes deeply into relationship and how do you do that in a one-to-one and a one-to-few and a one-to-many. And that's when you start to get into the one-to-few and one-to-many, that's where marketing can help the customer success organization. How do you build engaging programs? How do you build brand affinity? Their expertise is in serving on a call center or doing renewals, and so having dedicated marketers to work with those teams on building out communities, building out uh, uh, programs that help keep those customers educated and engaged is something that a role that marketing can play. Um, and showcasing the customers and their success. And I don't just mean case studies, right? That's in social media, that's in different events, that's in helping them get awards. And so that's an area that marketing can play a role versus in enterprise. There's a lot more resources generally inside the company that can go to investing in those accounts, but those are maybe more high end in-person programs where you're spoiling the customer a little bit, or the customer advisory boards, or how you treat certain customers at maybe your annual events that you plan. So I think of both sides of it a little bit differently, how to serve small customers, because you have to make the math work, and you can't do it in a one-to-one relationship. So you have to get creative in how do you do that at scale versus in larger accounts where you have more resources to put towards that.
Mm-hmm. So how would you say the entire buying process for customers has evolved since the time you established Adobe's first enterprise customer marketing team and helped evangelize the importance of customer experience management for Adobe's most strategic customers?
Gosh, Adobe. So this is back in, I was there for a long time, but the customer experience management work and customer marketing work was like 2009, 2010. And what's interesting to me as I've moved from company to company is that many of the challenges, regardless of the size of the company, are very similar. And you're just working at a different scale, maybe global versus not as global. And so the buying process itself has changed. And everybody, I don't think I'm saying anything insightful here. It's just there's more buyers involved in the process itself. And so, and Gartner and Forrester have tracked this over the years, is just the buying committee. Now you're selling to a committee of buyers, not a single buyer for enterprise products. Like that's different if you're buying Creative Suite or something like that. So you really having to think about like the triangulation of roles. And I think this has impacted. So there's two kind of, I will give you two kind of insights or ahas though, as a marketer. The first is the companies who've recognized this have moved away from MQLs. So if I'm talking to and advising a company and they talk about MQLs and leads, I know that they haven't made that shift yet to account-based strategies. Because what they should be talking about is engaged accounts and how many contacts in that account engaged and how engaged are they. And so that's the first thing, is that marketing actually has to change our models and how we qualify our impact and how and when we activate our sales teams to engage in those accounts that are ready to enter the purchase or the buying cycle itself. So that's one thing. That's like engaged accounts. You have to change your scoring models. You have to give different levels of credit to different personas and what kind of things they're doing. So it's a complete flip of the old MQL models. And you never work leads, you work accounts, which means you also have to clean Salesforce, which is really hard. The second thing, and this is one that I find that people don't focus on enough. And so this is the nugget. So listen up. We know that it's 7 times easier to sell an existing account than it is to acquire a new one. Yet when we look at the resources that go into serving your existing customers versus acquiring new customers, they're out of balance. And those the buying process itself, from closed won to go live, is the most important part of the entire buying process, bar none. Like that is when you want to make sure that you're getting all your resources in, that the handoffs are smooth, or there's no handoffs. Ideally, you get your post-sales people involved in the pre-sales process, so it's a smooth transition, and you celebrate their success. The other thing that you need to do is you need to re-establish your primary contacts in the account, because so many times the people that are buying and in the buying process are not actually your users or your advocates. So you have a whole new community, a whole new set of customers inside that account that you need to develop relationships with. And all too often, people don't capture those contacts. We don't categorize them into the right roles. We don't communicate to them in the most efficient ways, because you communicate to a champion much differently than you would communicate to a system administrator. And so many times it just ends up in one big bucket. And so I think the more sophisticated companies that are really driving that long-term engagement, cross-sell, upsell, have high renewal and low churn, which is such a critical aspect of the SaaS model, are being more thoughtful about the entire buying experience.
So what advice would you have for those seeking to pursue the CMO role in the future? So in addition to what you've said now, if you had to literally, what do you think makes someone qualified and ultimately successful as a CMO?
I think the CMO first has to be a leader on the executive team. Throw away what you know about marketing. Like really think about your leadership skills. What do you know about business? How can you contribute to the strategy of the company? What role do you play in setting the go-to-market? You need to come in with an equal seat of the sales leader, of the product leader, and marketing. That is the go-to-market team. And so if you haven't spent enough time with those other your peers, or understanding their roles and their needs, then you need to start investing in that to make yourself qualified coming into the leadership role, because you're an executive first. You just happen to lead the function of marketing. So the second part I would say is, know how to hire well. Hire really talented people that form your leadership team. So what you can do is lead the entire team, foster relationships across the company, and empower them to lead the different functions of marketing. And do the day-to-day tactics. And I would say that comes true maybe when companies hit like 50 to 75 million is probably when you want a true CMO like I've just described, where smaller companies, you still need the gritty tactical VP marketing that doesn't mind getting their hands dirty, but still, that's a good time to start investing and understanding the different aspects of the business. And guess what? Looking at the buying cycle, championing the customer journey and the customer experience is the best way to do that. If you own the customer journey, naturally you're going to understand the role of sales and what they do in serving customers, what customer success does in serving the customers, how the product, what is the NPS scores, what are the product reviews coming back on the product, and bringing that back to the organization. So I would start there.
And what are the different functions of marketing that you'd assign these people you hire to? Like, give us a demonstration of what you think would be the important functions.
Oh, it's interesting because I wish there was one model. And every time I go in and I'm helping quite a couple folks right now with their organizational design, and it really depends on the company and kind of what stage they're at. For me, it's critical always to have a strong product marketing leader. I know so many times that marketing is first looked at for demand gen. My belief is that marketing is market. And so we need to understand the market, bring the point of view of the market, and that's product marketing in my mind. The second is demand gen, of course, and building out a high functioning, predictable engine. The third is communications. Brand can fit under that. It could stand alone as well, but your brand and comms, social media, how do you represent yourself in the market? And when you get matured, going on that full spectrum of the customer experience and the customer journey, you can make sure that we speak with the same voice, if that's before their customer and during the customer. And so, putting workshops together with other people that create content in your organization to harmonize, because it's one customer at the end of the day. So how do you have a single approach for creating content, I think is really important. Sometimes I've had account-based marketing or field marketing report directly to me when I want to stay close to what's happening in the field. And so from times to times, I'll have different roles. Like I've had customer marketing report to me as well, analyst relations sometimes. So it just depends. Partner, I've taken on alliances a couple of times. But I'd say the core: product marketing, communications, brand, demand gen, and what else? I'd probably put customer at that top level too.
Okay. Well, the last question for the interview is, what would you be doing if not marketing?
Gosh, I love what I do. I'm so lucky. Maybe two different things. Maybe a professional organizer. I get great joy of creating structure from chaos, and people that might go in marketing as well, but in organizing things or people. So I really, really enjoy that. And I think later in life, helping coach people, leverage all the learnings, take the great lessons I learned from all the coaches that I've been able to work with over the years, and pay that back would be really meaningful.
Okay, well, that was the last question. Thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Sydney Sloan, who is the former CMO at Salesloft. Thanks for joining us, Sydney.
Thank you very much for having me.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Marketer of the Month.